Welcome back, duelists and dungeon dwellers alike. Casual Duelist here, and today I'd like to talk about a little bit about some more Yugi-D&D. So, one thing that I have been trying to advocate for anybody who wants to play D&D with a Yu-Gi-Oh theme is like we have archetypes. We have so many archetypes. It's very easy to get to world building. And I want to give you guys an example of a group I've used twice. So stop me when you guys know who the Dark Scorpions are. So they're just 5 monster cards. They were released, I want to say it was originally Pharaonic Guardian, Dark Crisis, somewhere in and around that area. They may have even been spread out. They're basically a bunch of grave robbers in Yu-Gi-Oh! They're all Dark Warriors of different levels. And they definitely have, like, the iconic gang tattoo. Don Zalug is probably best known for not only being a viable warrior during, like, Warrior Toolbox time period, being played in a lot of Chaos builds. But as far as, like, Lost Art cards go, if you really pay attention to the finger placement there, and the fact that he's wearing a bandolier, this guy's actually supposed to have pistols. And it's not just here. I think there was a monster card, or maybe it was a trap card called Dark Scorpion Combination. And on that card, they actually show the pistol in his holster. Like, they just forgot on that card. They decided not to glorify it with a cool pose, and instead just leave it on a different card entirely, because Konami is Konami. They will change some weird things. Go back to my loot report and take a look at the whatever it was, Guardian of the Throne Room or the Labyrinth, the machine with the rocket tips that were changed. I digress. Why the Dark Scorpions? Well, you got 2 very cool things that you could do with these, and I've done them both. I ran a one-shot series. It ended up becoming a campaign, and I posed them as the bad guys. And I was doing more of the theater of the mind. We didn't really have figurines at the time. And it was cool. They basically hire a bunch of people to do some treasure hunting with them. And I sent my players around a continent working for them, using usually Monet and sometimes Chick as not just the scouts, but like the liaisons. Every now and again, you would see Gorg do something. Cliff would go out and about and do some missions and such. The big point here was I was sending my players after the Guardian weapons. Guardian weapons are kind of cool if you remember back that far. In the card game, they were weapons, equipment spells that needed to be in play before you could play the corresponding monster card. Which, again, Konami, I think was a little weird. I think if we could rework them today, we would have released them to where, you know, maybe the weapon doesn't need to be equipped somewhere on the field, but when they come into play, they have the option of grabbing their equipment and reassigning it to themselves. Similar to like how Magic the Gathering has the equip cost and allows you to move equipment from card to card to card. I think personally that could have been something that would have made them more playable. Maybe they wouldn't have been so forgotten. Again, I digress. So the Guardians in this story were basically the heroes of, 1,000 years previous. They were the heroes. They were the previous hero team. And my players had to go around collecting the weapons, turning them in, because they posed as being a good guy guild. Instead, what was really happening was I had Dread Scythe, which is one of the other Guardians. It was printed much later. I had Dread Scythe controlling Don Zalug. Basically, it was like a little mind possession. It wasn't so much as like nudging him in the right way to gather the weapons, so they could drain the power from the other weapons to reborn Dread Scythe into the world. At a certain point, some of the Dark Scorpions realized what was happening, and they told them, well, there's a holy sword too. You guys need to go find it. And it's actually the blade of Iatos, which is essentially the good half to Dread Scythe. We send our hero party out. They go ahead, they get this magical sword. They summon the angel to do battle with the demon of Dread Scythe. And basically you end up freeing the Dark Scorpions. Then later on, I made them NPCs as an actual treasure hunting guild where they no longer work towards the end of maybe of a kingdom by accidentally listening to a fallen demon. And so I just placed them throughout. And by this point, I'd gotten some figures, and my friends started asking me, they were like, well, were they all actually human? And I was like, no. Gorg's actually like this orc. He's just this really big, strong man. And they were like, okay. What was Monet? I was like, oh, Monet, she gives me tiefling vibes. Again, being more of the liaison, sort of roguish, made sense. And then Chick is the only other one that's really appeared right now. So I've been using like this dirty little scout goblin figure. It's kind of like a Pathfinder series goblin. Because again, I like differences in goblins. So he's been placed as Chick. Now, I do have Cliff and Dawn like in mind. Those figures are getting painted soon. Cliff is more of like a gnome since they feel like more of an artificing race. And I haven't decided if Dawn is actually going to remain human or if I want him to be super charismatic as maybe like I hate saying dark elf, but it always comes to mind faster than the word drow. And I might do that for Dawn because there's nothing intrinsically that needs to be evil about drow. So much as I feel like they are very charismatic characters. They have maybe an over-inflated sense of ego. And it could explain why he could have fallen victim to Dreadsight's mind control in the first place. But yeah, so this is just like the first of many groups of cards I'm going to like suggest that maybe you guys could work into your tables, and for a reason. They make an excellent cast of NPCs. You guys could keep them as the grave robbers. You could make them the villains. You guys can make them, temporary villains turned normal. You guys can do whatever you want with them. But honestly, I thought that you guys might enjoy this today. So that's it. That's realistically it. I mean, I'm not going to give you guys any stat blocks. If you guys are going to make them villains, make the stat blocks make sense for the progression of where your players are at the time. Do what needs to be done, do the homework. But this is really cool. And again, like you can pick up the cards for this relatively cheap if you want to have reference points. I know one of my goals was to have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Trade binder full of the cards I used for my Yugi-D&D. I have since just fallen out of that. I have a stack of the ones I need for reference most of the time. And it's like when you describe these characters, how do you describe them? Like Chick needed to be something that seemed like it could be more frail, but again, kind of, I don't want to say cowardly because goblins are really cool, but they do have coward skills, being able to disengage and hide as bonus actions. So they make cool rogues. Cliff, again, seems more like a tinkerer. Again, artificer, kind of a gnome. Gorg is just big and strong. You can make him a human. You can make him a Goliath. You can make him an orc. It doesn't matter. It's your game. You decide. Monet as a tiefling just seemed right. Heck, you could turn her into a drow. You could turn Don Zalug into a tiefling. Again, they're pretty charismatic characters. But just the tattoo and everything, that was kind of a cool signifier that was able to be brought in. And if any of your D&D players are also Yu-Gi-Oh players, it's going to be pretty cool for them too, because they're going to get to see some cards come to life in a way that they hadn't thought of before. So take it with a grain of salt, and you guys have an excellent day, and I hope to see you guys in the next video, alright? See you later.